The core of this slingshot will be made from some 10mm thick pieces of Brazilian walnut, purple heart, and exotic green wood. The design I'm using is called Ice by Sanj, although it does change quite a bit by the time I finish the project. Here I've traced the design of the PFS with some Sharpie marker onto all 3 pieces of wood. Now cut the pieces of wood out. I used the bandsaw because I had one, but you could also use a scroll saw, a wood saw, or a coping saw. Here are all 3 pieces after they've been cut out. Now I tried making some white paper micarta spacers in between the pieces of exotic wood to bring out the contrast. I began by cutting out 40 templates of the slingshot out of white printer paper. I spread epoxy onto each piece of paper and then mixed it up. Then I stacked the pieces of paper onto the wood to create the micarta material. When you're finished, clamp the wood and paper together to ensure that it bonds well. And this is the result. I also decided to use these metal faces and glue them on the front and back of the slingshot. Hopefully it would make it look kind of like a C-Tech material. Here's the PFS with the metal faces glued on. I just used some epoxy and then pressed it down on wax paper to ensure a flat surface. Now I'm leveling out the sides using a belt sander. You could also try to use files, but be careful because it may delaminate the metal faces. Here's what the PFS looks like after all the sides are leveled out. Now again, using the belt sander or some files, carve in a dip on the back of the PFS for your fingers to rest in place. And on the other side, slant the forks forward. And now round all the edges to make it comfortable to hold. Here's what it looks like after that's all done. Now using a 120 grit belt on the belt sander, sand the metal faces of the PFS flat to expose the metal and make it shiny. Now carve grooves for your bands to attach. I carved grooves on the front and back of the forks as well as over the top to center the bands. Also, clean up the fork gap using a circular file. And again, be careful to not delaminate the metal faces. And here's the finished shape of the PFS before sanding. Now start the sanding process. I started at 60 grit and then moved my way up to 2000 grit. When you're done with that, coat the Slingshot in about 10 layers of glossy polyurethane varnish. This is what it looks like after that's done. Then smooth over the surface of the polyurethane using steel wool and increasing grits of sandpaper. I finished at 7000 grit. Here's what the Slingshot looks like after it's sanded up to 7000 grit. To fully bring out the shine, I'm using paste finishing wax. Rub some wax onto the Slingshot and then buff it off with a hand rag. This is the finished Slingshot frame after it's fully buffed. The band set I'm using is made to fire .177 caliber steel BBs. Each band is 17 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. The pouch I'm using is about 4 centimeters long and 1 centimeter wide. Here's the finished PFS Slingshot. I hope you like it. Now let's do some shooting with this new PFS, using .177 caliber steel BBs at about 30 feet away.